Hello everyone and welcome to Biology with Dr. Sonia Shrivastava. In the previous video, we have discussed photorespiration and learned how the two factors, that is the light and carbon dioxide concentration, affect the rate of photosynthesis. In this video, we'll continue with the remaining two factors, that is temperature and water, and understand their role in influencing the rate of photosynthesis. So let's get started. So let us start with our first MCQ. Greenhouses like to enrich their indoor air with extra carbon dioxide to grow massive yields of tomatoes and bell peppers. Why does this specific agricultural practice work beautifully for these crops? Student, we know that the tomatoes and the bell peppers belong to C3 crops. Let's see the comparison between C3 and C4 response to CO2 before coming to the options. We know that atmospheric CO2 concentration is in the range of 300 to 400 ppm. So in case of C4 plant, CO2 saturation point is 360 ppm, which is less than atmospheric CO2 concentration. So the response of these plants are, since the current atmospheric CO2 levels are already above this, so adding more CO2 provides little or no extra benefit for these plants. Let us see C3 plant. C3 plant CO2 saturation point is greater than 450 ppm, which is much higher than atmospheric CO2 concentration. So the response of these plants, they are currently limited by atmospheric CO2. So when levels are increased in controlled environment, that is greenhouse, these plants show increased photosynthesis and higher yield. So farmers use CO2 enrichment to boost the productivity of C3 plants or crops like tomatoes and bell peppers, as they have not yet reached their maximum photosynthetic potential at standard outdoor air levels. Now let's see our options. Option number 1. They are C4 crops that have a very low saturation point at 360 ppm. Tomatoes and bell peppers are C3 crops and not C4. So this option is wrong. Option number 2. They are C3 crops that continue responding to higher CO2 levels well beyond 450 ppm. Yes, this is our correct answer. C3 plants show increased photosynthetic rates at higher CO2 concentration. We know that atmospheric CO2 concentration is 300 to 400 ppm and C3 crops have the saturation point beyond 450 ppm. So they show the increased photosynthetic rates at higher CO2 concentration, resulting in higher productivity. This is why the greenhouse CO2 enrichment is especially effective for crops like tomatoes and bell peppers. Option number 3. They absorb the gas to dissolve their waxy leaf cuticles. CO2 enters through stomata and participates in photosynthesis. It does not dissolve the leaf cuticles. So this option is wrong. Option number 4. CO2 acts as a catalyst inside their light harvesting complex proteins. CO2 is a substrate used in carbon fixation, not a catalyst in the light harvesting complex. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Moving on to MCQ number 2. Compare how C3 and C4 plants behave when exposed to varying CO2 concentrations under high light conditions. Which statement is fully accurate? Student, in the previous MCQ we have seen that CO2 saturation point in case of C4 plant is 360 ppm, while in case of C3 plant it is 450 ppm. As C4 plant already possess the CO2 concentrating mechanism, so they reach the saturation point much earlier than C3 plants. On the other hand, C3 plants continue benefiting from higher CO2 levels for a longer range. Let's see our options. Option number 1. Neither group shows any response if light intensities remain constant. No, even under constant high light, changing in CO2 concentration affects the photosynthetic rate in both C3 and C4 plants. So this option is wrong. Option number 2. C4 plants reach saturation early at about 360 microliters per liter, that means ppm, while C3 plants show saturation only beyond 450 microliters per liter. Yes, this is our correct answer. C4 plants show CO2 saturation at about 360 ppm, while C3 plants continue responding to increased CO2 concentration and show saturation only beyond 450 ppm. Option number 3. C3 plants are completely saturated at 100 microliters per liter. This value is far below saturation level for C3 plants. Therefore, this option is wrong. Option number 4. C4 plants require double the concentration of C3 to trigger their Calvin cycle loops. C4 plants actually reach saturation earlier than C3 plant because of their CO2 concentrating mechanism. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Moving on to MCQ number 3. Why do the dark enzymatic reactions of the biosynthetic phase show a much higher sensitivity to temperature changes compared to the light reactions? So before coming to the option, let us see the difference between light reaction and dark reaction. We already know light reaction are photochemical events, while they are affected by temperature, but up to some extent or degree, because they are primarily driven by light energy. But in case of dark reaction of biosynthetic phase, they are purely enzymatic. We have seen that during the Calvin cycle, which enzyme is involved? Rubisco. Enzymes are highly sensitive to temperature because they are proteins. So they can denature or lose efficiency outside a specific range. That means dark reactions are purely enzymatic, so they are much more affected by the temperature. So let us see our options. Option number 1. Light reactions happen in liquid water which acts as a thermal buffer. Both light and dark reaction occurs within the chloroplast aqueous environment. Water is not the reason for the difference in temperature sensitivity. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 2. The dark reaction is entirely controlled by a dense matrix of stroma enzymes that denature at high temperature. We have already seen that dark reactions are completely enzymatic and temperature controlled. High temperatures can alter the enzyme structure, reducing the efficiency of biosynthetic phase. Therefore, this is our correct answer. Option number 3. Light reactions do not utilize any proteins or pigments. Light reaction depends on numerous proteins and pigment complexes such as PS1, PS2, cytochrome and ATP synthase. So, this is the wrong answer. Option number 4. Temperature variations only alter the color of green chlorophyll. The major effect of temperature is on the enzyme activity, not simply on chlorophyll color. So, this is also the wrong option. Let us see MCQ number 4. How do the temperature optima differ between C3 and C4 plants during peak seasonal conditions? Let us see that if we compare between the temperature optima of C3 and C4 plant, C3 plants belongs to cooler habitats. That means the lower temperature optima, that is around 20 to 25 degree Celsius. While in case of C4 plant, it belongs to tropical regions, that is having the higher temperature optima of around 30 to 40 degree Celsius. Student, temperature optima is not same for all the plants. It depends on the habitat where the plant is evolved. C4 plants are adapted to hot and dry tropical regions. Therefore, they have the higher temperature optima. On the other hand, C3 plants are adapted to cooler habitats, therefore having the lower temperature optima. Let's see our options. Option number 1. C3 plant prefer a much higher temperature range than C4 plant. This reverses the actual trend. Actually, C4 plants are better adapted to higher temperature than C3 plants. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 2. C4 plant respond to higher temperature and show a higher optimum, whereas C3 plants have a much lower temperature optimum. Yes, this is our correct answer. C4 plants are adapted to dry tropical regions and show high temperature optimum, whereas C3 plants have much lower temperature optimum. Option number 3. Both groups share an identical optimum at exactly 25 degree Celsius. Temperature optima vary among plant groups and depend on habitat adaptations. Therefore, this is wrong option. Option number 4. Temperature optima are entirely independent of the plant's native habitat. Temperature optimum depends on the habitat to which the plant has adapted. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 5. Even though Water is a direct structural reactant in the light dependent photolysis step. Its overall effect as a limiting factor on the rate of photosynthesis is predominantly. So student, before coming to the option, let's see the concept. When plant faces a water deficiency or water shortage, major problem is that loss of turgor. That means plant cells lost internal water pressure, and because of that plants or leaf gets droop or wilt, and because of that stomata closes, and because of the closure of stomata less CO2 enters the leaf, and because of that CO2 fixation decreases and thus photosynthetic rate falls. Although water participates directly in photolysis, but its role as a limiting factor is indirect. Why? Because water deficiency causes photosynthetic rate falls, then also its role as a limiting factor is indirect. This is because the drop in rate of photosynthesis is not caused by physical shortage of water molecules, rather by plant's physiological response to saving water. Now coming to our option. Option number 1, direct by changing the molecular structure of NADP+. Water shortage does not change the structure of NADP+. This is unrelated to the limiting effect of water. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 2, indirect, though its impact on the plant's overall turgor and stomatal behavior. Yes, this is our correct answer. Water affects photosynthesis mainly through its effect on the plant. Water stress reduces turgidity, causes stomatal closure, decreases CO2 entry, and ultimately lowers the photosynthetic rate. Then also its impact is indirect. Option number 3, negligible, because plants never suffer from water stress. No, water stress is one of the most common environmental factor limiting plant growth and crop productivity. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Option number 4, direct, by altering the chemical composition of primary sugar products. Water deficiency does not change the chemical formula of sugars produced during the photosynthesis. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 6, water stress causes leaves to wilt. How does this morphological wilting event reduce the total rate of photosynthesis? As we have already seen in the previous question, that water deficiency causes loss of turgor, and because of that leaves wilt, and because of the wilting of the leaf their surface area reduced, and because of the reduced surface area light absorption decreases, and simultaneously stomata of the leaf closes, and this causes fall in photosynthetic rate. Student, water stress affects photosynthesis in more than one way. Besides causing stomatal closures, it also causes leaves to wilt. A wilted leaf loses its broad and expanded shape, reducing the effective surface area available for photosynthesis and thus lowering the overall metabolic activity. So let's see option number 1. It reduces the surface area of the leaves and lowers their metabolic activity. Yes, this is our correct answer. Water stress causes leaf to wilt, reducing the leaf surface area and decreasing the metabolic activity. Both effects contribute to a lower photosynthetic rate. Option number 2. It causes all the chloroplasts to sink down into the root system. Chloroplasts remain in leaf cells and do not migrate to the root. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 3. It changes the plant's pigments from green to bright yellow instantly. Wilting does not instantly change chlorophyll into yellow pigments. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 4. It forces the plant to start releasing oxygen gas from its root hairs. Root hairs not release oxygen as a response to wilting. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Let's move on to MCQ number 7. Read and analyze the following statements regarding the comparative advantages of plant pathways and select the completely correct choice. Statement 1. C4 plant possesses a highly specialized mechanism to ensure photorespiration never wastes their energy. Statement 2. C3 plant show a far more productive response to high CO2 enrichment inside closed greenhouse conditions compared to C4 plants. Student, this question combines two of the most important conclusions from the chapter. First, why C4 plant avoids photorespiration, and second, why greenhouse CO2 enrichment benefits C3 plants more than C4 plants. So let us see our statements. Statement 1. C4 plant possesses a highly specialized mechanism to ensure photorespiration never wastes their energy. This statement is absolutely true. As we already know that C4 plant concentrates CO2 inside bundle sheath cells before it reaches to the rubisco. Because rubisco is surrounded by high CO2 concentration, it acts as a carboxylase. Thus, photorespiration is effectively eliminated. Now, statement number 2. C3 plants show a far more productive response to high CO2 enrichment inside closed greenhouse conditions compared to C4 plants. Yes, this is also true. We have already seen that C4 plants already reach CO2 saturation at about 360 ppm. So, additional CO2 provides little extra benefit, while C3 plants continue responding to higher CO2 concentration and therefore show increased photosynthetic rates and productivity in greenhouse. Both the statements are true. Now let's see our option. Option number 1. Statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is incorrect. This is wrong. Option number 2. Statement 1 is incorrect, but statement 2 is incorrect. This is also wrong. Option number 3. Both statement 1 and statement 2 are completely correct. Yes, this is our answer. Option number 4. Both statement 1 and 2 are completely incorrect is also a wrong option. So moving on to MCQ number 8. This is assertion reason based question. What is assertion given here? Light is rarely the real limiting factor in nature for plants growing in open meadows. Meadows means field of grass and non-woody plants mostly covered with wildflowers. And what is the reason given here? Most terrestrial plants reach full light saturation at just about 10% of peak available natural sunlight. So before coming to the options, let's see our assertion and reason and the connection between them. So what is assertion given here? That light is rarely the real limiting factor in nature for plants growing in open meadows. This statement says, except for plants growing in shade or dense forest in open meadows, sunlight is widely abundant and rarely limits the plant growth. So this statement is 100% true. Now what is the reason given here? Most terrestrial plants reach full light saturation at just about 10% of peak available natural sunlight. This statement says most terrestrial plants reach maximum rate of photosynthesis they can achieve at 10% of peak natural sunlight. This statement is also true. Now we will check the connection between assertion and reason. Why is light rarely limiting in open meadows? Because open environment provide for more than 10% of full sunlight during most of the day, since plants reach their maximum photosynthetic rate at such a low fraction of available sunlight. Additional sunlight does not increase the rate further. So reason directly explains the assertion. Let us see our options. Option number 1, both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. As we have already seen that our assertion is true and our reason is also true. So our correct answer is option number 1, that both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. While option number 2, both A and R are true but R is not the correct explanation of A, is wrong. A is true but R is false is also wrong. A is false but R is true is also wrong. Let's see MCQ number 9. If the current atmospheric concentration of CO2 gas climbs steadily from 390 ppm to 520 ppm over a long period, how will the productivity rates of wheat, that is C3 plant, and sugarcane, that is C4 plant, react? Student, this question applies the CO2 saturation value of C3 and C4 plants. Remember that C4 plants become saturated at about 360 ppm, while C3 plants continue responding to higher CO2 concentration and show saturation only beyond 450 ppm. So before coming to the options, let's see the concept first. Wheat is C3 plant. C3 plant is limited by atmospheric CO2 and reach saturation at about high concentration, that is beyond 450 ppm, while sugarcane is C4 plant and have internal CO2 concentration mechanism, so they are efficient at low level and reach saturation at around 360 ppm. But as the question says, atmospheric concentration increase from 390 to 520 ppm. Then in case of C3 plant, since 390 is below ideal saturation for wheat or C3, increase to 520 ppm leads to increase rate of photosynthesis and productivity. While in case of C4 plant, since 390 is already above saturation point for sugarcane or C4 plant, increase it further to 520 ppm will have little or no effect on its productivity. Student, as the atmospheric CO2 rises from 390 to 520 ppm, wheat, a C3 plant, benefits significantly because it continues responding to higher CO2 levels, while sugarcane, a C4 plant, is already near saturation and therefore shows little change. So let us come to the options. Option number 1. Wheat productivity will decline drastically while sugarcane will double. High CO2 generally benefits C3 plants. This option completely reverses the expected response. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Option number 2. Wheat productivity will increase significantly while sugarcane will remain largely unchanged. We have seen that C3 plants continues to respond positively to high concentration of CO2, while C4 plant is already near its saturation point. So, additional CO2 provides little extra benefit. So, this is our correct answer. Option number 3. Both crops will instantly stop photosynthesizing. Increased CO2 does not stop photosynthesis. In fact, it generally enhances photosynthesis in C3 plants. Therefore, this option is wrong. Option number 4. Sugarcane will begin running photorespiration while wheat will completely skip it. Elevated CO2 suppress photorespiration rather than promoting it. Also, Wheat does not completely eliminate photorespiration. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 10. Blackman's law of limiting factors states that when multiple separate factors affect a biological process, the net rate of the reaction is directly governed by the factor that is. Students, Blackman's law is based on a very simple idea. When several factors are required for a process, the factor which is in shortest supply controls the overall rate. That means the limiting factor. So no matter how much of the other factors you have, the process cannot go faster until the limiting factor is increased. For example, if light intensity is low, increasing CO2 concentration will not speed up the process, because in this case light is the limiting factor. So let's see our options. Option number 1, present in the absolute highest abundance in the environment. Excess factor does not limit the process. Having more than enough of the factor cannot increase the rate if another factor is in shorter supply. Therefore, this option is wrong. Option number 2, summarized within the internal layer of bundle sheath tissues. This statement refers to the plant anatomy and has nothing to do with the Blackman's law. Therefore, this option is wrong. Option number 3, closest to its minimal value, directly limiting the process. Yes, this is our correct answer. According to Blackman's law, the rate of process is determined by the factor nearest to its minimum value. This factor acts as a limiting factor. Option number 4, completely independent of the environmental temperature shifts. Temperature itself can become a limiting factor and is included within the Blackman's law. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Student, the Blackman's law states that when a process depends on the multiple factors, the factor closest to its minimum value controls the overall rate. Increasing any non-limiting factor will not increase the rate until the limiting factor is corrected. With this, we have completed all the topics under the chapter Photosynthesis in Higher Plants. I hope this series has helped you to build a strong conceptual understanding of photosynthesis. In our next series, we will begin the chapter Respiration in Plants and explore how plants release energy from the food they produce. So see you in the next chapter. Thank you for watching.